if there's reasonable suspicion that you engaged in this conduct, you broke this law, then they can get your medical record, and it should be noted.
It's still there. Right. Hey, oh, by the way, sorry I'm interrupting you, but like my camera is on like my camera is on, I forgot a piece and it's like on some Hershey bars right now. So
I think sometimes we just forget that we're still human beings. Yeah, I think it's important that everyone should know their status. Knowing your status is the first step to really kind of having that conversation. I think it's important we learn how to tackle stigma and get rid of it. I think it's such an extremely amazing thing that I get to do this every day and meet such great people and learn their story and share some of their story with the people that watch us every day. To remember to stay hopeful in victory.
We're gonna try something different today.
Just for me.
just for the queen. But I'm Dusty Lion, and this is Hopeful and Victory Talks. And before we get into it, I'm gonna go ahead and give you a dab of that coffee. Y'all already know what it is. Bing! That's good. So let's go ahead and go right into the stuff. I cut out the S word because we're being professionals today. Yeah, if you can go ahead and introduce yourself to me, myself, and myself, and not as I. Hey, y'all. Okay, we ain't there yet. But introduce yourself to me in the audience, if you will.
Hey, y'all. My name is Myron Grant, and I am a staff attorney with the Legal Council for Health Justice, and I work in the AIDS Legal Department.
Awesome. So, Myron, can you tell us a little bit about the work that you do here?
Yeah, as an attorney with the AIDS Legal Project, we help clients with issues ranging from Social Security to landlord-tenant, HIV disclosure, and discrimination in the workplace, and as a private entity as well. Once a week, I do the legal clinic at Howard Brown on Sheridan, where if you're a Howard Brown patient, you can come to us for free legal advice.
So guys, if you haven't figured it out yet, today's topic is a really serious topic, and it's a important one. We're going to be talking about HIV criminalization, the laws, things surrounding that spirit, because I think a lot of the times people who are HIV positive or who may be exposed to it, or maybe just curious that they may have it or not. They're afraid to kind of take the test because take the test, you risk arrest. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like how can we kind of figure out ways to make this easier for people to want to get tested and learn about their status. Mm-hmm. So we're not going to jump into that quickly, but we're going to start slow. We're going to take some baby steps because, again, I barely know much about this, and that's why I brought a really great friend. We're friends today. Well, we're going to be friends in general, but a really great person who I've become friends with, and he's going to educate us about this topic as best as he can. Myron, tell me how these cases come about.
To be honest, these cases happen when people are ignorant and fearful of HIV and how it's transmitted. A lot of times, I've seen people go to their dentist and they would disclose their status to their dentist. They might not know under law you do not have to disclose it to your dentist, but some people could think, I have to do this, or some people may want to do it because they may think they'll get better medical help, knowing with drugs interact, all that kind of stuff. And then what we will sometimes see is a dentist who you would think should know better, mm-hmm. Will refuse to see the patient, or they will ask someone who's positive to get a letter from their primary care doctor, making them jump through more hoops than someone who is negative, and it's discriminatory.
So when it comes to that act, when do you kind of take action? When do you kind of come into play?
Gotcha. Well, I have the statute written out right here, and I'm going to try my hardest to break this down in a way that is easy to understand. And I'd just like to read that statute to you.
Yeah, please.
In Illinois, it says a person commits criminal transmission of HIV when he or she, with the specific intent to commit the offense, engage in condomless sex, transfer or donate semen, blood, or an organ. And then the third one prohibits HIV positive people from sharing needles, which will affect anyone who's positive on drugs. So it's discriminatory in 3 ways. And you violate that statute, it's a class 2 felony, which means that it's punishable by 3 to 7 years, and there's a fine of up to $25,000 associated with this. And here's the most shocking part: actual transmission of HIV isn't necessary for prosecution.
Really?
Yeah. So just say if someone who is positive and they're undetectable, they have no way of transmitting that, but they can still be charged under this law.
Wow. So are there cases now that are out there today where transmission may have not been the intent, but it's just a general person that carries the virus?
Luckily, with this new administration in the state's attorney's office, they aren't prosecuting these type of cases, and that's a good thing. But there have been administrations before this one where people have been prosecuted under this law, even though it might not have been transmitted.
Now, you read out the law. What are some of the things that we're kind of doing to protect people who are facing this sort of discrimination?
Well, right now we are in the process. Well, and when I say we, I mean the Legal Council, and there's a coalition, the HIV Criminalization Coalition, which is made up of other organizations like ours. And we are trying to, well, I don't know yet. Well, we haven't decided yet if we want to repeal or make some type of changes to the law. And I'm going to explain just how that law works and the things we've been working on.
Okay.
So first, we are in the process of sending a letter to Attorney General Raul because the Illinois criminal transmission of HIV statute requires the specific intent to commit the offense. Reading that statute, one would think that the offense is the transmission of HIV because that's the plain language of the statute. In 2012, that statute was amended, and they added the phrase with the specific intent to commit the offense. But just take a moment to think about that, because if the legislature meant that a person have to have the intent to engage in each component of the elements, meaning that you have to have the specific intent to engage in sexual activity, to not use a condom, etc., then adding that phrase as the amendment would just be redundant if that was the case. So in law, what we call this type of crime is a general intent crime. So that means the only interpretation that does not make that added phrase in 2012 redundant or unnecessary means that the person must have acted with the specific intent to transmit HIV.
And my thing is, just kind of hearing that piece of information, like why are these like still laws today when we have come so far in medicine?
Right. These laws are still on the book today.
I'm not asking you why, but like the history of kind of beginning.
Right. Well, these laws are outdated, and you have to think about it. These laws came about during the time when people were very fearful of HIV. And you can kind of understand, how lawmakers felt the law would provide constituents further protection or incentives, maybe thinking that they were safeguarding the people. Like I said, we making baby steps. That law was amended in 2012. So that means that prosecutors are required to prove that the person intended to transmit HIV. But still, even with that, that's kind of an overreach. So I think it's just best the way to do with the HIV specific criminal law.
Okay.
Because this is the only disease that is specific like that.
Is there any other laws like gonorrhea, specific HPV maybe? No? Like, is this the only like law?
It's just, yeah.
Are you sure you're an attorney?
Yeah.
Yeah,
really?
Because
HIV is singled out, and there are so many other dangerous diseases that can be transmitted through unprotected sex. And plus, the current laws that's on the books right now, they don't take into account the advancements with medicine. You can be undetectable and not transmit it, and that's what the laws just haven't caught up with science yet.
Sorry, my American ego just sent me a text saying I got a 30% discount. Thank you. But I didn't mean to get you off. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to let you guys know, as the coalition, what we've been working on. Earlier, I mentioned that we are in the process of drafting the letter to the Attorney General, and we also have met with Kim Fox's office, like I said, who said they are not. Kim Fox is the state's attorney. They are not prosecuting these cases. So I just want to kind of let you guys know the difference between the two. Kim Fox is the state's attorney's office here in Cook County. Okay. So that means that whatever decision she makes, that decision is persuasive. Meaning that if we go to another county here in Illinois, DuPage, any county, they don't have to follow what Kim Fox says, because it's persuasive, not binding. On the other hand, when we're asking for the Attorney General's interpretation of the law, that's binding because it's a statewide thing. So if he says that, yes, you have to have the specific intent to transmit HIV, that's binding all over the state.
If we have another case, we then look at his state's attorney and look at his
the Attorney General.
Attorney General's interpretation of that specific case and kind of use that in relation to maybe a case.
Well, not of the specific case. It's more of the statute.
The statute, okay, and how it was used.
Right.
Okay. Steered off from it, but I want to go back to intent. Like, what does that mean when you say like a person has to have the intent to transmit the virus?
Meaning that, in a way that I see it, you have to say, okay, I know I have HIV. I know I'm not being treated for it. I'm having unprotected sex. I know for a fact this person, can be transmitted. Versus if you're having unprotected sex and you're undetectable, and you don't have that intent, that specific intent to say, hey, I'm having sex with this person and I'm about to transmit HIV to them.
That doesn't exclude the fact that you can still be prosecuted,
because
the transmission doesn't have to be there, or the intent.
In the, I guess the most bizarre part about this is once you're charged with this as an affirmative defense, you can use the fact that, hey, I disclosed this and this person knew about it, they knew the risk, and they proceeded to have sex with me anyway. But the thing is, it's proven that in court. So what they're kind of wanting or expecting people to do is maybe, send a text message to the sexual partner saying, hey, I'm HIV positive. But, when you do that, you run the risk of that person showing that to everybody, that person threatening to disclose you, saying, if you don't do this, I'm going to send this out.
Now, is that admissible or dismissible in court, though?
That's admissible, because you will want to bring that into court to say, hey, I proved this.
But so I guess when I say admissible, what if they share it with someone else? Then someone else he didn't tell me, or
that's illegal.
Okay.
So admissible means that it can be used in court. That in that instance, that's just illegal, because anytime anyone shares your HIV status, they have to have consent from you.
Anytime anyone shares your HIV status, they have to have consent from you.
to disclose my status, then under the law, under the AIDS Confidentiality Act, you can be punished for up to $10,000 for intentionally disclosing someone's status. So if someone says, "Hey, I'm going to expose you and I'm going to show 5 people," then you can sue them in court up to $50,000.
My thing is why I was listening to some videos and they were talking about some cases that are now ongoing now, and people are like facing 25, 35 years, 18 months. But the biggest one that really like caught my attention was I don't remember his name, but he spat on an officer and he got like 35 years for the intent of like harming a law enforcement officer, and then like he was accused like a sexual assault or something like that, where you now have to register as a sex offender.
Yeah, certain states, it's just crazy because you know that you can't transmit HIV.
I'm sorry, I'm getting steamed up over here, but
no. So stuff like that is just completely unacceptable. Here, I will say, like I said earlier, we're making baby steps. In Illinois, they won't charge you with this for spitting on someone. It's only like the 3 things I mentioned earlier. It's only having condomless sex, if you're positive, if you're sharing needles, or donating blood, semen, organ, any of that stuff. So those are the only 3, not the spitting and all the.
We don't condone spitting.
Yeah.
That's another assault, actually. That's another law in the book. So don't go spitting on people, even if you're not positive. Okay.
So, I just want to add that these laws are a problem because, like I said earlier, you can have someone who's adhering to medical care, always taking their meds, and they're undetectable, and they just they're incapable of transmitting HIV. And even though the new administration in the state's attorney's office is not prosecuting the cases, there have been cases in Illinois where the state's attorney have brought cases for this crime.
And so what are we doing when we kind of see those cases come about in court? Like how is the state attorney and then also offices like yours?
Well, again, Kim Foxx said that her office is not prosecuting these cases. And then when someone calls our office, and it's me, I make it a point to explain the discriminatory effect of this law. And as a result, we choose not to take those cases on because we know how it affects certain people. It affects, people of color especially. Because, and then the fact that, again, with the text message example, this can just lead to all type of, emotional violence, as if you're holding something over someone. People who are addicted to drugs and sharing needles, sex workers. It really hits a certain a certain population. So we choose to not do anything with it. And luckily, thankfully, the Fox administration at the state's attorney's office aren't prosecuting these cases. So that's a good thing.
Yeah. And are we looking at the science and the numbers as far as the disproportionate rates in like Caucasian men, Black men, Latino, and how these cases come about?
Here's the thing. There isn't data kept on these charges. Okay. So, but we can look at other places and know that people of color are charged more with this from other states. But here in Illinois, there's no data kept on this issue.
Okay. And you don't have to answer it if you don't know this. But is that something that we're working on to get that data, even though we're not like
right. This is something we've kind of discussed in the in our decriminalization coalition. So I think in the future we will have more of that, the number of crimes. But again, with this administration not doing it, we can at least see the number of times people have brought it to the state's attorney's office. What's going to be unlikely or not there is how many people were prosecuted under it, since they're prosecuting these cases,
right?
Which is a good thing.
That is. As far as the coalitions, you said that you haven't really discussed any sort of like steps that you guys are wanting
Right.
to do. You're working on the letter first, and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
after that, everything else will ensue.
Right, yeah, because we have the retreat planned tomorrow where we're just gonna kind of like get our goals together, like what is it, make sure everyone's on the same page
Okay.
as to what we need to do. And I think the reason why we've been kind of, sitting on that repeal versus amend, we want to get the public educated and involved as much as we can. And it's just not here in Chicago. This is a statewide thing, so we want to go downstate, everywhere to see people's opinion on this. So, it may take a while, but
Are there like are you guys like doing any kind of like gatherings?
Yeah,
Not just
yeah.
like for tomorrow, but like downstate, like where people.
Yeah. So we've had a couple of focus groups down in Southern Illinois. We have some more coming on the way. At this point, we are trying to develop some type of toolkit that explains, kind of like a handy dandy type thing that explains what's going on. That explains what's going on.
Yeah.
Just make sure the public is educated and people living with HIV are at that table.
It's important that we get more people who are HIV positive, because when we can do that, it's like, hey, yeah, it's a risk and it's scary, but that's the only way we can kind of get this thing going.
Absolutely.
Which kind of brings me to, and I'm not sure if you answered this yet, because I'm not sure if I read it by your supervisor, but can prosecution and prevention coexist? Like, personally, I think no, but I feel like you have much more experience than I do.
Here's what I'll say. I think that you can't solve a public health issue with the criminal law.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does.
That,
I'm gonna be a high five on the black side.
That's what.
That's an ADC. My grandpa used to say that all the time.
If you're, in court and you, even before court, you know that this is a felony, a class 2 felony. We're talking 3 to 7 years and up to a $25,000 fine, even if that person did not contract HIV. Like that emotional toll of knowing I'm living with something and I'm healthy and I can still be jailed or
Consider
have
like
to
a
pay
they.
a fine. Yeah.
Like the law just when you read off, it's like that's an they and this isn't us, and we're trying to protect us from them. And it's like, even if they are healthy, even if we have all this science to prove that if someone's undetectable, they're untransmittable. Get it? We talked about this. U equals you. So
just have to educate more people on U equals you. No. I was like, let me not say which doctor. Okay, so he'll write this to me like.
You go like, wait, what?
Right, yeah, you're gonna do me like that.
Right, you go like, come here, let me fix your teeth.
Right. So even like medical professionals, like doctors, one of my doctors knows the type of work that I do, so we were just having a conversation. He said, "Oh yeah, I heard of this new thing that stops people from getting HIV." I'm like, PrEP. And he was like, "Yeah, that's it." I was like, have you heard of U equals U? And he's like, no. Like, and I was telling him and his staff about it. Sometimes I think, like, whoa, like doctors and nurses and medical
who else
assistants.
gonna be out there?
That if they don't, know that, then I can imagine what the rest of the public doesn't know.
And that's funny you say that too, because my aunt, I did an episode with her a couple of weeks ago. And she was just learning about what PrEP was too, and that's something we need to be talking about in our families, in our communities. And she's like, now that it's affected me directly, and I can see how it affects not just you but everyone else. It makes me want to get involved. It makes me want to educate myself, educate my kids, and so it's just surprising how some people don't know that, and some people who may ignore it as well.
Yeah. Speaking of ignoring, I mean, even within our own community, people will say like you clean, like no.
Yeah,
you can't.
I hate that. That's why I'm off dating apps. I'm done. I'm gonna meet my man like the old fashioned way.
like dishes are dirty, clothes are dirty. Like people aren't dirty.
Yeah.
Like, you can't. No.
You can't just label somebody like that. And I think we get so caught in such a label society where it's like it starts off like, okay, I'm bisexual, I'm gay, and then it goes down to like, okay, what class am I twink? I'm a bear, I'm an otter, and it becomes even more like a subculture, if you will, and that's extremely off topic, but it plays into the idea of like the stigma that people experience on
and educating people around that.
Exactly, because it's sometimes you get so pushed far in the closet that you accept that subculture life as a norm,
right?
And then when you're like, you see the actuality of things, when some people see what I'm doing and what you're doing, they're just kind of like, oh, that's crazy, like, yo, that's unimaginable. And it's like, no, like this could be you, if, you know, if we can just start by having a simple conversation and kind of learning how we can be better every day and how we can just make other people's lives better too.
Exactly. Last year I had the pleasure of speaking at one of our fundraisers.
Okay.
You know, I always tell people, I say, you know, I work with a lot of people who are positive, you know, and they come into my office and we do an intake, or, you know, I'm talking to them. Me as a gay black male from South Georgia who was raised like many of our clients, you know, that could easily be me on the other side of that desk. So I trying to do everything I can to, you know, get this law overturned, get this law repealed, and just help out, make sure people have better access to health care in the legal system.
And now that you brought up healthcare, that actually makes me want to go into another topic, if we can, and that's when these cases come into court. I've heard that they can ask for your health record, and your healthcare provider can disclose that information. Right.
So if there's reasonable suspicion that you engaged in this conduct, you broke this law, then they can ask you, they can get your medical record, and it should be noted.
It's still there. Right. Hey, oh, by the way, sorry I'm interrupting you, but like my camera is on like my camera is on, I forgot a piece and it's like on some Hershey bars right now. So
you get the medical records. I was gonna say something. Oh, I was gonna say, let it be known that they only need reasonable suspicion, and you probably heard of reasonable doubt. So it's even a less standard than reasonable. I'm sorry.
I'm running back because I'm like, this is getting interesting.
Let me back up for a minute. They need to have reasonable suspicion that you committed this offense, and reasonable suspicion is a lower standard than probable cause, which is a phrase you've probably heard of.
I have, yeah. So kind of like a search, like, oh, I need a probable cause to search your car or something like that, like I smell marijuana kind of thing.
And that's kind of a high, it's a high standard to meet. So in this case, reasonable suspicion is even a lower standard you have to get someone's records in this instance.
So in this case, so if someone, I'm HIV positive, and then someone's like, yo, you didn't disclose to me, which has happened before, and I have to be like, no, I have, and here's a screenshot. And it's like, they think that, and how does that process look like? Because then they can say like, oh, I can go and like report this, that this wasn't the case. Because a lot of it sounds like it's a lot of he say, she say, if you will.
In that case, luckily you have your receipt. So with the prosecution if they were to prosecute these cases, and prepping and doing the legwork for this case, they could easily verify the numbers and say, hey, what we see on this date, you did disclose it. Then it would probably stop right there. Okay. But without that proof, and it is the he said, she said thing, then if you're saying you didn't know you were positive, Then they can get your record and say, hey, well, here's the test you took on this date. Y'all had sex on this date. You were positive, so.
No, it's even more. It's like, yo,
Right.
you lied, and now we're gonna.
Yeah.
And then there's multiple counts that they can count you for as well, correct?
What do you mean?
Like I may have misheard this, but oh my God, it's like
What?
I'm like, why is there white stuff on me? Wow, that was not the context I did that. In a relationship, and your partner's like, he didn't disclose to me, and like after the first time you had sex, and they claim that you didn't disclose, so you can have multiple counts of a felony or an sexual assault or a criminal intent. I'm not sure if I'm saying that correct.
No, I mean with this, if someone's bringing the charge, say, hey, we had sex, and they didn't disclose it to me, and it will more than likely just be under this statute right here, the transmission of HIV.
So, to kind of combine everything of what we have said already, if someone's in the middle of their case, like what is the judge kind of looking for? Of course, they're looking at the law of the land and the evidence. But are we considering like the science?
Well, again,
before it gets to that judgment, I guess.
Well, that's up to the prosecution, really, because they're going to decide, okay, what's going to happen with this case now that it's brought to us. So then, the prosecution may say, hey, this person is undetectable, so I'm not even going to bring this case. So really, even before it gets to the judge, it's that prosecutor's call to see what's going on.
Not the prosecutor considering like maybe someone who don't have access to health or to certain resources that maybe a counterpart person could have access to. Like if someone who lived in, Crenshaw or Chicago versus someone who lived in like, more flourish and more different area. Are those things considered as well?
Unfortunately, no. That's not considered. Which again, then you can see why it's not only discriminatory, but it affects a certain population.
Yeah.
People who can, have access to the care that they need.
Yeah. In prevention services.
Right.
PrEP. And if they don't have access to that, it just leads to a lot of social issues.
Here's the way I look at it. If you have someone who is homeless, they're always maybe losing their meds, which is why we try to do our best to get people housing.
Yeah.
If someone meds need to be refrigerated, and they're homeless, then they're going to be sick. So, as an attorney advocating for that person, really affects their health care as well. And we have an MLP, which is a medical legal partnership with Howard Brown.
Hey.
So once a week, on Mondays we do the legal clinic at Howard Brown in Rogers Park.
Okay.
Wednesday is my day. I do it at Sheridan.
Go Wednesday. You can see Myron.
And then on Thursday we do one on 63rd Street. So
that's awesome.
come on.
Yeah, and please share that with me.
Yeah.
I'll definitely put it in the description for you guys as well. I've been lacking on that. I've been saying I'll put information in the description and I haven't, so I'm going to be going back and putting that in the videos. Because actually, the week after this, next week, I'm actually talking about housing and how that affects people living with HIV.
Yeah.
It's a cycle where it can affect a lot of things in their life if they don't have a stable housing, stable home.
Let me just put this little disclaimer here.
Yeah.
To come to those clinics, you have to be a Howard Brown patient. But Howard Brown is an excellent place.
So you can hook them up with faith.
Yeah. Hook them up with that.
So you have to be a Howard patient.
Howard Brown patient.
Howard Brown patient in order to attend
those clinics. In order to get legal representation in the clinic. I don't want people just showing up and like, well, Myron told me.
That's not what we said. Rewind it a few years. I'll probably cut it out anyway. Just make a gift out of it. We're just having a good time.
Kiki.
How are we going in communities and getting people involved and learning about these policies in place?
That's what we are trying to do with the focus group. And again, we have a list of questions like, do you know someone who's been prosecuted? Do you know someone who may have disclosed their status and it's being used against them? Do you know anyone who's kind of been extorted? And stuff like that. And again, it's something we want to do all over the state, not just Chicago. But I feel like the focus groups have been extremely helpful. You say if you disclose and have protected sex.
Yes.
No, that's not the case. No.
Okay.
Because besides you disclosing it and that person consenting to it, that's an affirmative defense. And one other defense is if you use a condom. If you use a condom, you do not have to disclose your status.
So it's okay, because now I'm even more confused. So when do we get into this disclosure of verbal and nonverbal? Like, because nowadays you have dating app, you have Grindr, you have you got the swipe left, swipe right, Tinder. Thank you. I'm not acting bougie. I swear to God, I just can't remember it. Those nonverbals, because now you have Grindr, who now lets you place that on your profile. Right. Is that considered disclosure to a sense? Do you need to disclose at that point?
That's a good question.
I guess that falls into the modern.
Yeah, because you don't technically have to. Well, the way I see it, you don't have to disclose it in that type of public setting where everyone can have access to it. Just because I want to have sex with person A and let them know that doesn't mean I want the rest of Grindr or the rest of Scruff to see that.
To know.
Yeah.
And that's my I guess we can't really know until we know the law of the land in this case, where it's kind of like, where does that kind of come into play, and kind of it seems more of subjective, if I'm using that correctly, when it comes down to if that's considered disclosing, because that's such a great question where it's like, if you are using protection, like, you don't need to disclose in the state of Illinois, is that correct?
Yeah.
And then if you are disclosing and you are using protection, then you pretty much kind of have said affirmative defense upon yourself. And then there is the tricky question where it's like, if you have it on your profile but you don't disclose maybe in conversation and you engage in protected sex, like how, like, there's so many situations where that are already happening, and of course
that could play out.
And could play out into the courts, but we don't know until state attorney. And what are they doing to kind of get this recognized to the people? Like,
I don't think. Well, it's not really their job to talk about what's going on with this. I think like services like ours is the ones that get out there and say, tell what's going on, and tell how the law works.
Share this video. We need to get his attention. It's him, right? State attorney?
No, it's a her.
Y'all, thank you guys for watching again. I'm Dusty Lyon, and this is
Myron Grant.
And we are at
the Legal Council for Health Justice.
And then where can our viewers go if they're in this area, if they want to get involved?
I would say once we have the dates for the focus group, especially people living with HIV, we want you at the table. Because this law affects not just everyone, but especially you, and it's just good to have people at the table living with it, and not people not living with it who are kind of deciding what's best for those who are living with it.
And remember, if you want to go ahead and break HIV stigma, start with that one awkward, crazy conversation, because you never know what it may lead to. You educate yourself, you may learn something, and you may just help somebody else who may be dealing with something. So again, guys, thank you so much. Y'all have a great rest of your day. Bye.